World Games. Take on the world. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Sam.
Guys, I'm sure we're all familiar with sports like weightlifting and, maybe a little familiar with cliff diving, but who really knew about the caber toss before today's episode?
My great uncle was a famous caber tosser.
My great uncle was a famous caber.
Yeah,
Wow.
my parents put me in Little League caber tossing, so...
You know what, we'll get into the games individually, but there's something funny about the caber toss one, because now I'm picturing, like, kids trying to do that same thing, and they would be awful at it. They would just suck.
Well, how do you think they get trained? I mean, how old do you think the people that caber toss are? I mean, they gotta start somewhere.
Okay, but, like, you know how it's painful to watch, like, kids in chorus or in band, and you have to go to their, like, local auditorium and watch them do their recitals or whatever? That's
you're
the
like so
equivalent.
inspired the whole time. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Go through your tears.
Exactly. And now you have to do that with caber toss. You have to be like, all right, he's going to pick up the log again and try to balance it while he walks and then toss it a little.
I feel like that
Yeah.
would be very fun to watch. I don't know about you guys.
It would probably be tough, though, to see the kids get smushed into the ground when they drop the caber and it lands on their head 3 distinct times, like it does in the game.
Yeah.
It's a high turnover. A lot of people lost their lives.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Dark turn.
World Games is made by Epix, who also made, if you guys will recall, Winter Games. The game that we absolutely hate and has that ice skating game that doesn't make any sense.
They
did you
fixed
guys
it
know
in this
that?
one.
I didn't. It's these sort of like these Olympic-ish games all feel a little similar, but this one felt more different than the others, if that makes any sense. So I did not think that this was the same company.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I was comparing them a lot. I think I was comparing them to Winter Games. Like you said, Sean, they kind of blur together for me too, but I was comparing them because I remember really disliking some of those other ones. This one, I think, there are some instances of improvements in this one compared to some old ones.
Yeah. I think especially the... I mean, we're going to get into it, but I think especially the ice skating felt familiar to me. Like the barrel jump. Because you're on skates in that one.
Yeah. And so, Epix released Summer Games first, and as you could imagine, that was a bunch of summer-themed sports that you would see in the Olympics and so on. And then Winter Games came, and that was like the Winter Olympics. They just couldn't use the name Olympics. I wonder what made them think, like, let's go with, like, a worldly motif and just grab, like, from different countries around the world, a sport specific to them.
Their
and
most
then
cartoonish sport.
Right. Choose their most cartoonish sport in the sense of, like, characterizing the states, not the states, like the United States there as, like, they're cowboys, so do the bull riding. It's like, there's something funny about, like, Mexico and cliff diving. I don't know. Is that really, like, what they're famous for? Like,
I have no idea. I'm just gonna take their word for it. But I do like that. Is it Germany that you have to just jump over a bunch of barrels or something?
Yes, that's the barrel jumping.
Yeah, that's funny too.
So, but it's a good conceit, though, at the end of the day. Like, I do have to give them credit that they followed through on it really well, of like, well, if we're going to make it the world games and everything, and these are going to be kind of weird games that, might not be familiar to everybody, it's going to make you more culturally aware, and then we're also going to give you these, like, splash screens before you go into each game that explain, a little bit about the how the sport works and the history of it and stuff like that. I appreciated those insights, because when I selected log rolling, I had no idea what I was going to be doing.
Yeah, it gives you a little it like lets you immerse yourself a little more into it. It gives you a little history lesson on what you're playing and where it comes from.
I think it's just a glorified, like, we didn't make this up. I feel like a lot of people would think they did.
That's fair.
And there's something presentationally, like the way it's styled, this game, makes me feel like I'm playing this one on a computer. Do you guys know what I mean? It has, like, this, like, Apple II style graphics look to it.
It feels like Pitfall.
Sure, that's a
Like-
good. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's like the straight lines or something. Like the it's like very like geometric, and that always reminds me of those old computer games.
Even just that UI and the way that it like lays everything out, like the spacing of the menus, and that the options aren't terribly different from each other, but you still have to choose between like play all of these, play some of these, practice this one. You know, it's like I think that there's just something about the nuance of the way they designed it. And to be fair, this game was totally on computers first, but it just feels weird playing this on the NES, and made me want like, you know, an Oregon Trail or a Number Munchers version on the NES.
Oh, that would be great. But no, I get that. It's almost like a too faithfully done port, taking UI elements from the computer. I can see that.
And then the second step of that, though, which is kind of strange, is that when you go into each game, you need a manual in order to figure out how to play those games. Because if you don't, you know, if you just like go into the level, there's no like assistance of like, you know, using the D-pads or using the buttons. And so you need the manual there. And I know that sounds strange because like technically you always need a manual to find out what you control in a game. But when you're talking about, you know, I think 8 or 9 different you know, little games inside of one game, it feels like that splash page could have benefited from like a little line on the bottom just explaining the controls.
They could have had 2 pages. There's no reason not to. The fact that how to play the game is buried in the manual, like beyond the like just like a lot of games you want to read the manual just for like broad strokes, but this is like it's like an instruction manual, like an instruction booklet of how to build an IKEA chair, and it's giving you like the exact like button inputs that you need to actually do the thing that you're supposed to do. A game built out of mini games needs to have those instructions in the game experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's weird that when they were playtesting this, that there wasn't someone who realized, hey, every time we play a game, we have to reference the manual every time we get to a new thing. And we also have these splash screens that have information on them, and like, why don't we meld the two?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Mario Party, you know, like there's like 70 mini games in there. If they didn't explain before you play that very mini game, if you had to go to the manual, like those board games would take even longer. So
Yeah.
yes, it is a little bizarre, but it also doesn't help that all of these games, you know, don't control in the most intuitive sense that you would think of. You know, I don't know how you guys felt, but it's a lot of just left and right on the D-pad in a rhythm fashion, and I just thought that was like very strange. So I would never guess to do most of the things that they wanted me to do in these games. So I definitely needed to keep going back to the manual anytime I played one of these.
I'd say that like my experience with this game, with many of the mini games, not all of them, but it almost felt like a rhythm game, like you said. But it was like if you're playing DDR, but you didn't get to see the inputs, like scrolling, or like Guitar Hero without seeing what button you're supposed to press. You just sort of have to, like, you know that you only have this many options of what to do, but like the rhythm changes depending on like whatever sliding scale that you're allowed to adjust. But you have to keep doing this just to figure out what the correct like rhythm of input is.
Yeah, I felt that way particularly like about the weightlifting, maybe just because it was the first one that I played, but that felt very much like, okay, the more weight you add, it like increases or decreases the window in which you have to like, it changes when you have to change your position of your character, but like you don't know when that is.
Yeah.
So you have to do a lot of experimenting to figure that out.
There are cues, but you have to learn them by failing 500 times.
Right.
There are cues for some of them. For others, I feel like I think that there's no feedback, not just cues, but feedback for when you do something wrong.
For sure.
It just, in some of the games, you can't tell if what you're doing is good or bad. Where like if I'm, you know, rolling in the log and my guy suddenly falls, I'm not sure if it's because the other guy changed direction or if I went too fast or too slow or what, you know? And I know there's like the meter or anything, but it's not really explained. And don't even get me started on the bull riding too.
Oh god, yeah. There's a couple of games in here that I was just like, all right, no chance I'm doing well in this. And there's other games I thought were too easy.
It seems like we have to start breaking down the games before we go any further, because otherwise we're just going to accidentally do it. Right. I'd like to start with the game that I actually thought translated maybe the best out of all of them, and that was the weightlifting from Russia. I think we lift weights all over the world.
With love.
Yeah, sure, Sean, but you know what I mean? Like, we lift weights all over the world, so again, I'm not sure why they chose Russia for weightlifting. It's not like they're doing specific Russian power lifts either. So, in this one, you have to, you're just using the up and down D-pad buttons, but you have to time them based on, your lift and your, maximum pull, and if you hold too long, you'll drop it. I thought that was kind of interesting that you have to change between, when you should go up versus when you should bend back down and, all that. So, even though it was only 2 buttons, I found this one to be very easy to pull off. The lower weights are definitely more forgiving. But I actually did eventually clear the highest weight, so it's not impossible. But it's fun to learn the instances of okay, I need to hold for a little bit longer before I lift to the next step, because otherwise I won't have enough energy and I'll just drop it right away. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I get what you're saying, but this is the mini game I was referencing, where it just felt like I was playing DDR without the input scrolling. It really kind of annoyed me that, again, that there just wasn't feedback to show me how I was doing it wrong. This is the one where I'm I've eventually found the cues for when you're supposed to shift to the opposite direction, but I didn't like this one at all.
I think I fall kind of in the middle there, because I definitely saw what you were saying, Mike, while I was playing it, where I was like, well, this is interesting the way they did it, but I did wish that they gave me some indication of teaching me how to do it, or giving, other than just trying over and over again and failing. But yeah, I thought it would maybe even be something if you've never lifted weights before, this would give you an idea of what to expect. This is the kind of, it gives you the idea of how you should do it, technique or whatever. It's like an entry level thing. So I was oh, it's kind of cool that they translated it like that. But I did feel it was definitely lacking in I don't know, feedback, I guess.
Yeah. When I got it and when I completed the lift, I felt all right, yeah, I get this. I understand the motions of it. I kind of feel the flow of this game. But then sometimes I feel I do the same thing and then I just drop it, and I wasn't exactly sure why. And I don't know. I guess it's the kind of thing where if I play more, then I would really hone in on what exactly to do. But just because there is this lack of feedback, it gets frustrating.
Right, I see what you're saying there, Sam. Ideally, right, the NES has a rumble pack built into the controller, and you're able to feel your legs shaking if you hold in the position too long or something like that.
You do that visually though too.
No, that's what I was gonna say next. Is yeah, they could have totally done that. Where you see the legs quake, or you see the arms start to give out or change a color or something like that. I don't know. I didn't find it to be that difficult though, because I guess I'm thinking about it. As the lift, it's you can't just jump right into the next pose when you think. You kind of need to hold where you are for a second, get your footing, and then go. So you have to almost, you have to have a beat in your head to it of okay, I'm in the squat, now I gotta come up a little bit, and then I gotta switch back over to, get rested on my collarbone. I thought that was working.
Okay. I mean, that to each their own.
Alright, so after that, there is slalom skiing from France. And, Rare only published this game. Epix was the one who made it, so it's not quite the slalom that Sam is looking for. But Sam, what did you think here of another variation of slalom on the NES?
Oh, this one sucked, man. This especially compared to the GOAT slalom. This one I felt it was just weird And I don't know about you guys, but I always felt like the controls were backwards sometimes, like not actually backwards, but it like mixed it up in my head. And I don't know. I could see how there's like a rhythm and there's physics to this one, but it just didn't seem that fun to me to finally get it. I don't know. I wasn't feeling this one at all. Like,
I much prefer Ski Free.
Oh, Ski Free, yeah. I thought you said Ski 3, and I'm like, oh.
That's a different way, right, of handling the skiing thing. It's like this view it's a little too tight for what they're trying to do. They needed to like pull back and spread out the flagpoles a little bit. You know, like I'm sure whatever they were trying to do it like how it is done in the Olympics or what have you, but like it would have just helped the user a lot more to prepare for these turns. I felt like some of them, I was just like, I just accepted. I was like, all right, not making that one. Try to make the next one. You know, like you just move on.
Yeah. I couldn't miss less than 7 of those. Like every time I had to miss at least 7 if I wanted to make it, you know, without wiping out.
I feel like if they zoomed out a bit, made the flags a bit further away, and also sped the game up, I might have been just as bad at it, but it would have felt a bit more fun just with that added sense of speed. Because when you see skiing in the Olympics, like you get that sense of speed. It's really not here.
Yeah, I feel like I was grinding to a halt to make some turns.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, did you guys think? Because I thought I did pretty poorly every time. I still got gold though, which I feel like it was a little too easy because I was like, wow, I barely hit any of those, and like I don't know. I felt like maybe the world records that they start with are a little low.
Well, Joe, don't you think that's just a problem with this game in general, though, is that most of the games are very forgiving to you? Like, I wouldn't say I got gold in all of them, but, you know, it didn't seem like the computer was putting up much of a fight.
Well, you know what I'll say is I'll say that I think about roughly half of them were too easy. Maybe like 4 of them were too easy, and 3 of them for me were just impossible.
Or are those just based on how intuitive they were to use? Like, if it was like one you could somewhat understand, you're going to get the gold medal.
You're right, exactly. And there's one we'll get to at some point that I just literally didn't even know. I was just finally just skipped it. I was like, I can't even get this to do anything. But yeah, so this one, slalom, was I'd say somewhere in the middle on that scale for me.
And I mentioned it briefly, but it's just kind of funny that like Rare published the game, and that doesn't mean anything. But I like to think of them, you know, opening up the game, checking it out, being like, oh, all right, we're going to distribute this one. All right, let's take a look. And then they see Slalom, and they're like, oh, we could totally do a better version than this, and then just choose not to. Up next, log rolling from Canada, you know, because after you extract all the syrup from those trees, you just knock them down and then roll on them. So,
and then you put them into shark-infested waters.
Log rolling is something that I don't think anyone is familiar with, Sean, so why don't you break this one down for us?
Okay. I mean, I get the concept of what's supposed to be happening.
That's all I want to hear. I want to hear what you think is supposed to be happening.
I guess there's a designated adversary. I don't think there's 2 people. There's you, or whoever is the contestant, and whoever this other guy is, and you're trying to stay balanced on a rolling log floating in the middle of the water, and to knock off the other guy. And that's pretty much all I can. And you can use techniques such as going fast, going slow, or going in a different direction.
Yes, ancient techniques passed down for generations.
Absolutely.
You guys have never seen this?
In real life?
I can't ever pull my leg.
I've actually seen this
it,
before.
Though.
I feel like I've seen cartoons of it, at least.
Yeah, I think I've seen Bugs Bunny do it.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen it in person, but I feel I've definitely... Maybe it's because I'm a Survivor fan, and it might just be a common challenge on Survivor, but I feel like I've seen it, like, other times also. But, yeah, people doing a log roll.
Are there sharks in the
Yeah,
Survivor
there's
version?
always sharks. Yeah, it has to be sharks.
I think there's sharks in the Bugs Bunny version.
The shark is the penalty. That's like, you know, it's not win or lose, it's win or die.
Yeah, it seems to be what happens in a lot of these.
See, Now, I noticed with this one that I don't know if I would consider it easy or hard because I didn't really have any trouble not falling off, but neither did the computer.
The
My
computer
game went
refuses.
For like 3 minutes.
It's a game of chicken with the computer.
Yeah,
how long
it's just a game of like how bored are you gonna get? Because I was after like 3 minutes, I was like, do I even want to beat this guy? This is really boring.
Honestly, I was trying to figure it out. I read the manual several times. I was doing what it was telling me to do, and those two bars at the bottom, they just looked like alien glyphs to me. I didn't know if I was affecting one or the other or both, and nothing I did worked. I just kept falling off. So I guess I have even less of a concept of this game than you did.
I was kind of not quite there. Like I beat the opponent once, and I don't know how I did it. And that bar also confused the hell out of me too, because it's not in the manual. The manual doesn't mention what the bar means. And if it fills up on one side, is that like what is that? Does that mean it's too fast? Is that your balance?
I
was thinking it's your balance. I was thinking balance,
Yeah.
Sam, because if you slow down a little bit, it seems like you get your balance back, a bit. But I couldn't figure out like how to counterbalance that.
Yeah.
Like it just happened on accident.
Yeah, I thought. There were a lot of times where I was like, "Oh, I get what it's trying to indicate," but then when I would like put that into practice, it didn't seem right. Like I thought it was like if I was because you alternate back and forth with the left and the right D-pad button, and I thought like maybe I was favoring one side or something, and if I started to kind of make the like hit the right side twice before I hit the left side or something, then I would start leaning the other way. But like none of that ever really worked. And then I just noticed that like if it starts to lean one way, if I just keep going at like a good rhythm, it'll just correct itself. So like I really don't know what was happening there. But like sometimes it would look like, oh my god, I'm about to fall off because that bar is filling up, and then I would just keep doing exactly what I was doing and want it to go back, and it would just go back. Like there was no actual input that I could attribute to it.
There's also a distinct lack of sound during the game. Like no sound whatsoever until you fall into the water. I thought that was strange.
It's spooky.
Like I was like, oh, is my TV muted? So I like raised the volume dramatically, and I was like, oh, guess not. And then I splashed into the water, and then the shark came out, and it was kind of startling because I had my volume up so much.
Yeah.
Insert laugh track.
You do get those little jingles before each event, though.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, so you get the jingle and you get the outro
and the national anthems.
Yeah, but you don't get anything while the game is happening, and I'm just like, there's got to be a sound.
I guess
there, feet or something that you could have put in there of like feet smacking a log,
just grunting,
water splashes.
I feel like they're anticipating like you and your friends just like yelling the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a wild. It's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why the Super Bowl is muted when it airs.
Well, they don't play music during the play.
Yeah, but they don't turn off the sound of the arena either.
I just meant it's like the Super Bowl in the way that you and your friends are reacting to it while watching it.
This is silly.
All right, after log rolling is cliff diving from Mexico. That famous thing that they do all the time where they get to the highest points near the ocean and then they just take a giant dive into very shallow water and they're graded on it, essentially. So that's cliff diving here. I thought this one, graphically made a lot of sense. What they asked me to do made a lot of sense. These are good check marks for me. But was it too easy? It just felt like there was a lack of things to do and a lack of consequences. So as long as you kept going further out and you didn't hit the cliff, you'd be okay. Sean, am I wrong?
I actually like this one because it's a bit more freeform and it's not like there are fail states, but you're supposed to at least be able to complete this, and it's just a decision of whether you complete it better than the rest of them or not. And I know that the computer players aren't very good, but I did like the grading. The fact that there's a rubric depending on like how close you stay to this like next to the cliff without actually hitting it. and so I liked that it was a bit more freeform.
Yeah, this one I thought was a pretty good like translation control wise. It was, I also thought, like a little easy because I felt like no matter what I did, even if I whether my score was high or low, I felt like I always got gold again, which just felt like there should have been like, I don't know, it should have been a little more challenging there. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. There's like different scorings based on like when you pull out of your dive and how close you get to the bottom of the
lake,
like the ocean floor or whatever it is. That before you pull up and stuff, which you play around with that and get different scores. Kind of shallow though no pun intended, but kind of shallow after a while. It's how much can you really do with it?
I think this one would be like a better multiplayer one because your people you're going to be playing against are probably going to be better than the computer. That could be said for all of these games, but I think like for one player to inexplicably get one more point than the other would probably result in some pretty funny arguments. So I'm always down for that.
For me, I feel like I had more trouble with the lower dives than the higher dives. I don't know if you guys felt that. I feel like I couldn't get away from the cliff.
And they give you less points anyway, so there's no reason.
Yeah. I feel like I kept bumping on the rocks, even like keeping my body not in the diving position, the one that my back arched to keep you like soaring away from the cliff. Even with that, I felt like I'd still hit the rocks.
Sam, it's funny because I just realized I'd never done anything but the highest point, which should be a hard thing to pull off, but it just makes sense since it gives you the most points that you just do that one and see what happens.
And I'd say it's also the easiest.
Right,
yeah.
that's what I was going to say. I just didn't even know it was the easiest. I just thought, like, well, if it's worth the most amount of points, that's the one I want to do. But it's funny to find out that, like, the ones that reward you less are actually more difficult. But I believe that because you have to pretty much always be extending your arch outwards. Otherwise, like if you let up any time before that, you will hit the cliff. So it's more about like timing the part where you pencil out. Is that the, I don't know if that's the right term, but whatever. Like where you become a straight line with your body. That's the only part that really starts to matter. Otherwise, it's like if you're not arching yourself out to continue to go further away from the cliff, you're guaranteed to hit the cliff at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
And you could also sort of adjust the speed at which you move from, it's not just a binary, you're diving outward and then you're diving down. Like you can sort of slowly change from like one state to the other. I have no idea what that does for your points, but it at least made me feel like I could be creative with it a little bit. Not so much thinking about the statistical optimization of it.
Yeah, I guess they're just relying on like fear of heights to keep you away from the top one.
Yeah, you get a lot of vertigo watching on this.
Yeah, like the nerves start going crazy when you get high up. Even though it's easier to play the game.
Yeah, they should like patch a VR patch in or something.
So next we have the caber toss, the one we were talking about in the beginning, all the way from Scotland. I don't want to offend any Scots here, but this can't be the best thing to represent Scotland. And if so, why choose it? Like, there's so many other countries they didn't pick from. Why choose this?
That's so backhanded. I love it.
I feel like this is a cool concept for. Like, I think I may have seen a couple of clips of people actually doing this, and it's, like, really cool, because it's balancing and, like, brute strength and agility with that strength, and it feels like there's a lot of things and precision that goes into it. It's like a dynamic shot put, in a way. But this, I could not figure out how to make my guy walk at the correct pace to go fast enough to start running to be able to throw it. And I don't know if that was me or what, but I just could not get the dude's legs to work.
Yeah, I was really bad at this one too.
I was the same way. I thought that you had to get a running start in order to throw forward momentum. Only literally right now, I always have footage playing in the background while we're recording this. I'm seeing this YouTuber do it and realizing that you're supposed to get a little bit of running start, but then wait until it starts to lean forward and then throw it. I don't know if you guys knew that. I did not know that. This is the one I was talking about earlier when I said that there's at least one that I just had no idea how to do it. But now I feel kind of stupid.
Well, Joe, if it leans forward, that will help with your momentum as you throw it into the air.
Right. I was trying to get a running start. I thought leaning forward was like a warning, like, oh, it's going to fall, like, watch out. And then I was like, oh, if I can run fast enough, he'll be able to throw it forward. And I just thought every time I threw it, it was like, oh, not fast enough, it didn't go anywhere.
Gotta let the caber do the work, man.
Yeah, I realize. I maybe I would have loved this game. Maybe this would have been my favorite game of so far.
I want to find this one in real life. Like, I want to watch a video of someone actually do it, because I'm not trying to harp on the actual, like, let's talk about it from a gameplay perspective here, right? I feel like what I'm doing, what I'm pulling off in the game world is nothing helpful at all. Like, it feels like it's just something that two brothers made up over the weekend, because the way it looks, it's just, you don't run all that fast for what it's worth. And then you just hold this log and it starts to like teeter. And then when you like, to Joe's point, if you think it's teetering too much, you're like, it's probably going to drop. Then you just throw it, and you throw it like a measly amount. Then it like either falls backwards or forwards. And then you get like rewarded. Like, everybody's like, holy shit, he did it. They're like, I cannot believe that he just pulled that off. And I liken that to javelin, like when you throw a javelin, that looks awesome. That looks like you're doing like some, Roman 300 shit or something like that. You're really going all, Greek, whatever. You're really going all out with it, You're really throwing this, this weapon very far across a field. With this, it's like you're doing nothing. You might as well have balanced it on your head. It would have been more impressive.
This isn't very multicultural of you, Mike. I just have to say.
It's not about the culture. It's about the way that the game decided to present it. Like, it's a video game. Make it look freaking cool.
I hear
They got kilts. They got a plaid kilt. That's pretty cool.
I do appreciate the kilt, and I guess that's a once you actually complete a caber toss, they do what I imagine is a dance from like the olden days, of medieval Scotland. I don't know if it has anything to do with nationalism, but it's there.
You know what I appreciate? I appreciate, now just thinking about it, you're a guy who's competing, could be from anywhere, but he still has to wear the kilt to do the caber toss. It's part of the event.
Or does that mean that, like, the weightlifting, like, you are the Russian guy?
No, because you're playing as like whoever
you got to name your guy.
Created.
Yeah,
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm thinking about, because I played most of these games in practice mode.
Well, you can tell that you're in Russia because of the they have a huge vitamin market, and they've got that poster in the background that just says vitamins. So that's how I know I'm in Russia.
They don't have brands.
Vitamins.
It's just
Vitamins,
sponsored vitamins.
Right. I think we know what those state-sponsored vitamins are. All right, up next,
Placebos?
Bull riding from the United States, of course. We all tune in, Fridays at 7 p.m. for the bull riding competitions on. It's actually covered simulcast on NBC, ABC, Fox. It's just that big of a deal.
Yeah. So, great American pastime.
I could try to explain what you need to do for bull riding, but I feel the least qualified after playing this game. Like, I thought I had a good idea of, like, you just have to stay on the bull for as long as possible, and as long as you do that, you're a winner is you, like, good job, you stayed on the bull for X amount of time. But I don't think I ever stayed on this bull ever. Like, I think I had a better chance of getting like a running start on him than starting on him, because as soon as he starts moving, I am back to Winter Games ice skating level of confusion.
I mean, the way that it's described in the manual, it seems pretty it seems pretty normal. Like, you just lean into whatever movement the bull is doing. But in practice, like, I think I can get one or two movements in and then I just fall off. And I don't even know if the game is just being nice to me and like letting me have a couple, because I don't think I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, but with how often I fail, I feel like I'm not doing anything right either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this one is another one where lack of feedback just kills it, because I'm like, I totally understand what it wants me to do, and I think I'm doing it, but then I'll fall, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I was doing it, because there was nothing changes based on what buttons I hit. So like, I have no clue what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So I'll add that I think it's funny that you can pick which bull you want to ride, and you get no difference in appearance or anything, except that you know that that bull is Bob.
It's supposed to be harder with, the cooler the name, but it ends up being just as hard, for us at least.
Well, it's the graphics of the bull and then the speed of the movement of the bull. Like, the bull, what they want you to do on the D-pad, which is like, I could liken it to, if the bull moves forward, you should move backwards on your D-pad, right? Like, you should always kind of like fight in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But the movement of the bull is so fast and the graphics are so unclear that I would have had a better time just guessing on my D-pad, like just spamming input buttons and lasting like, a few seconds longer. I didn't, by the way. I'm just saying, like, that's what I would have been better off doing.
Fault.
Right. It just wasn't happening for me.
Yeah. And I'll add that bullfighting is actually pretty messed up. If you look up what goes into it.
Though.
Not bullfighting. Sorry, bull riding. Bull riding is pretty messed up if you look up what goes into it and why the bull is bucking. I won't say it on the podcast.
Don't think about that. This is America.
I won't say it on the podcast, but it's not fun.
All animal related sports are bad.
Not like the Westminster Dog Show. That seems pretty fun.
Think about what those dogs. Do you think the dogs want to do that?
They're trained to want to do it.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so now we're just talking about brainwashing. Good job, Sam.
That's what dogs are.
Yeah, through the power of vitamins.
Otherwise, they'd be wolves.
All right. So after bull riding comes barrel jumping from Germany. This is, actually, I'm going to let Sam take this one because you were excited about this one. You said this is like translating really well in the new version of ice skating, or figure skating as it was in Winter Games. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So not the figure skating one, but the speed skating. Where,
oh, right.
Yeah, this is, I feel like this controls like that should have controlled for that part of it. And all in all, I feel like this one was the best one. Like I understood completely what I was supposed to do. I felt like the motion of skating was comfortable, and I didn't have like a log rolling kind of time with it where I felt like I was moving with purpose the whole time. And the jump was slow, but that's cool because you have to time it, and then you have to hold down on the D-pad when you're landing so you can land correctly, which is whatever. But I don't know. It was very basic, but I feel like they nailed this one.
Yeah, no, this is my favorite. My favorite thing about this is that you get to choose how many barrels you jump over. So like you can have like a hold my beer moment of like, here, watch me try and jump over 19 barrels, which I don't think is possible. And there's always a really funny wipeout animation with that. But you can sort of like fine tune it and like let me add one more barrel. I think I could do it. It's silly, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was my favorite also. I just feel like it feels the best. And what I liked about this over the other games is that I actually had some fun with this one, like compared to most of the other games in this. But so I don't know about you guys, but I found 13 was the most that I could get. But I swear, if I did longer, I feel like 14 was possible. What'd you say, Sean?
I said, yeah, 14's in you. I think you can do it.
Okay.
Well, Sam, you mentioned it as like a throwaway thing, but the landing, the fact that you have to just hold down on the D-pad, is kind of important because that was one of the things about figure skating that sucked. Nobody was able on this podcast and probably in the world to successfully land their figure skating move because it required you to like land perfectly when you hit the ice, and then it was like, due to lag or whatever, or based on like shitty programming, it just never really worked out. At least in this one, they give you the leeway of like, so long as you're holding down on the D-pad at any particular moment before you land, you will stick the landing, which is like the correct way to handle a multi-input, multiplayer game. Not multiplayer, mini game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was figure skating the one where you had to put in it was like a password almost? You had to type to land like on their way down?
I think that was it, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely it was. Absolutely was. All right, last one. Sumo wrestling from Japan. A game where they included a lot of thought into it and a lot of different things you can do, but at the end of the day, you might as well just hold the D-pad in the direction of your opponent and push him off the sand.
Yeah, that's sort of what I did. I don't think I ever failed in this one. I also don't know what else I could have done. So yeah, that's pretty much how I felt.
Yeah, same here. I felt like the times that it felt like the opponent was getting the upper hand on me. There's two forms of every input. One where you're holding A, which apparently means you're holding the opponent's belt while you're doing it, and one where you're not. So I would just switch that up, and it would, like, if he starts to get the upper hand, I just hold A and continue hitting the right D-pad button, and then I let go and continue hitting the right. Just as long as I'm just ramming that right D-pad button, we're gonna go to the right.
I tried being a little bit trickier and doing different kinds of inputs, and I lost. So that strategy doesn't work. I think just holding right is the way to go. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go around here, and then you won't expect me to do this, and then he's like, no, I'm just gonna push you.
You played yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like we should just become sumo wrestlers at this point. Like, we got the strategy down. No one else knows. Just
I gained
go
enough
to
weight
the direction
during
you want to go.
Quarantine.
There's also like something funny about, not having to use any strategy to win. And like, Sean was saying that I was being offensive to countries. Think about how offensive the game is being to Japan, being like, if only these guys just went to the right, they'd never lose. So now that we've covered all the games, are these the best games they could have picked?
What's that one game where you have to like climb up a log as it's falling across a river and then jump off the top of it? You know what I'm talking about?
Is that real?
Yeah, I think it's real.
That sounds awesome.
I think it's an Irish game.
I'll watch that.
Caber Toss reminded me of that one. So I feel like they could replace Caber Toss with that one.
There's that one where you just try to go down the hill the fastest. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
The cheese
it's like
skiing?
The cheese one?
and it's a very the cheese wheel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would play that.
I think there should have been, like, it should have been all these, and then, like, an inexplicably robust Flugtag, like, where you have to design your own, like, weird machine to jump into water. That could be, like, Sweden or something, right?
What is that?
The Flugtag? Is that what am I saying it right?
I don't know what that is. If you are, I can't confirm or deny.
It's like a Red Bull thing where you make a plane, but I guess that's not actually any country. That's just Red Bull.
Oh.
Red Bull will be a fun country someday.
That'd be really funny if Red Bull is like on the end of the options of countries and just a sponsor.
So if you ignore the fact that they're missing all of Africa, right? They're also missing Antarctica. So each one of those continents, if we're going to call this World Games, should get like a representative. And I just feel like, it would have been so cute for Antarctica to include like some kind of penguin sliding game where, where you just play as a penguin and try to like, go down like a half pipe made out of ice or something. I'm creating my own game here, of course.
Or like,
but I thought that would have been a nice touch for World Games.
Or like
maybe a bonus level.
Australian like spider avoiding, something along those lines.
Yeah, well, okay, that's
or
I don't know how they feel about that. They might be terrified of spiders, and now you're just bringing that up again.
I think they can handle it.
And then we keep talking about they only ever really want you to use like the D-pad alternating like between left and right, or hit the A button occasionally. There's a small amount of controls in all of these games. Like the fact that most games are just like 2 inputs or a button press. Is that a problem? I say no. I say it's not really a problem because any more buttons and I would have been even more stressed about like, okay, I gotta relearn every single one of these games every time I play them.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem at all.
No, because they're mini games.
Yeah, I think that it was it's a nice change from something like Winter Games where they realize, like, first of all, that you can translate something that's complicated with few buttons. You don't need to have every little thing being as precise. So I thought with a couple of exceptions, they were all pretty doable.
Yeah, I think it's not the buttons that was the issue for me. It was just the feedback from the buttons. And if they could have more feedback, then I think it would work a lot better.
So we played Winter Games, and World Games is the last of Epic's game series. But it is not the last for us because they haven't ported California games to the NES yet. We will get California games sometime later this year. Look forward to it. It will be games exclusively based in California, I imagine. Guys, guesses on California games?
Professional venture capital.
Maybe some surfing.
Some kind of skateboarding, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like
simulating
water.
a housing crisis.
Escaping from wildfires. I don't know.
All right,
Sorry,
it's all there. It's funny because it's like these are all not problems probably for California in 1988, but are now. So we are outdating ourselves in the past.
Yeah, people are gonna now know that we didn't record these in 1988. So
right.
You're so new-fashioned, Mike.
Anyway, we pretty much covered these games at length. It's kind of incredible the runtime we've gotten out of this episode, and I think the only thing left to do is a little thing we like to call the Essential Games List. Sam, I need you to tell me if World Games is an essential game or not, but I also want you to tell me which of the minigames was your favorite.
Of the minigames, I gotta say that barrel jumping was my favorite, just because it felt the best. But this game has it all, honestly. Like, it's got multiculturalism. It has all sorts of games that you can play. It has very long national anthems for countries that went on longer than I thought that they would. And it also has super janky controls, and it's not super fun to play. So for that reason, it's not an essential game.
This is very confusing.
And yet he said it in a way only Sam can.
Yeah.
Joe, same thing. Favorite game, not on the system, on this particular game. What is your favorite game? And is this game an essential game?
I mean,
game.
Right. Not to be repetitive, but I'm also going to say barrel jumping. I just felt like it felt the best, and it controlled well. That was my favorite on here. As far as my essential vote, I mean, I had mild amounts of enjoyment with a few of the games on here, but really, I think overall, it wasn't particularly fun. I mean, even some of the ones that I enjoyed more, even barrel jumping, how many times can I do that before I'm like, okay, I did it 3 times, I got 13, maybe I'll get my 14, and then I'm probably done playing this forever. So, I mean, it didn't really leave much for me to come back for. And I know I say this a lot, but I just think that this, I don't see why you would make this game without making a 2-player. I think these games, the only way to make these games kind of fun is to compete against someone. To just compete against a computer in weightlifting.
Oh, you can.
I don't know, not particularly
you can do
enjoyable.
multiplayer.
You can do multiplayer in this game?
Yeah,
You just make more than one character. You silly
well, then
goose.
I take it back. This
you
is
have like
an essential
8
game.
characters, right?
Yeah.
This is an essential game, and I guess now that I'm thinking about it, even if you didn't do multiplayer, you just compare your scores. So wow, this is an essential game, probably my favorite game of the NES. No, I still don't think it has enough to offer. I do think it is better now that I feel kind of dumb for not realizing the multiplayer, but I do think it's better now, but not even close to essential game. Someone else talk. Someone else say things.
I'll talk. I will say here and now that Barrel Jump is an official essential game on World Games, because I'm also voting for Barrel Jump. But as for World Games as a whole, I'm just going to repeat what they said and say that like this is not enough. Most of the games are jank. I did read that this was pretty popular back in the day. I guess as far as this sort of thing goes, I don't hold that against them, but it's not an essential game.
All right, and I will say that Caber Toss was definitely my favorite game on this collection. It's just such a unique spin on a sport, and it proved to me that anything can be a sport. So for that reason, Caber Toss is my pick. But also, World Games is surprising, right? Like, coming off of Winter Games, which I'm sure kids would never make the connection to, even though it says games and games. If you come off of that, I was expecting garbage. But this is okay. It's not great. It's not fun, even most of the time. But it is an okay game, to the point where, like, I actually don't feel, if you got this for your birthday, or you bought this based on the box art at Toys R Us, you didn't get completely burned. You probably found a way to make it work. Like, if you're 8 years old and this is the game you have, and it's your game, that you rented from Blockbuster for the week or whatever, you're going to find a way to make this fun, and then 30 years later have good feelings for it. It's not so bad that you hold it against it. So it's an interesting type of game that I feel like we've never, there are other examples, sure, but like we never really brought up that kind of thing where it's like, well, it wasn't disappointing. But yeah, it's not an essential game by any means, and I wouldn't say go check it out if you're just hearing about it now. But I could understand, Sean, why people might have received it well back then, because it was like, one game. Why would I pay $50 for one game? I just got 9.
That's true. I don't.
So
I stand corrected.
That is World Games, not essential, but a collection of games that happen to take place on this Earth. Now, next week we are playing a puzzle game called The Adventures of Lolo, which does not take place on Earth. I just think it's worth mentioning. The NES and the fact that this is a chronological exploration of North America doesn't mean that the games that we review have to take place on Earth.
Or even North America.
Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, I was going to say, Super Mario Brothers technically does, because those pipes don't lead to another dimension. They just lead to the Earth's core, where the Mushroom Kingdom is. Like Brooklyn pipes lead to the Earth's core, which lead to the Mushroom Kingdom. All pipes lead to the Earth's core. That's a fact. Ask any plumber. Anyway, Adventures of Lolo next week. We'll see you then. Remember, every Friday we post episodes, and all week long we post tweets on our Twitter at NostalgiaCast, and that's where you can say, hey, I'm from Scotland, and the Caber Toss is like my great-grandfather's legacy. And that's where you can let us know something like that. But you wouldn't want to make something like that up either. You wouldn't want to troll people on the internet. So just think before you do that. Instead, maybe comment like, hey, this is a great podcast, and I'm so happy to be a listener. That would be nice. Remove
any opinion and just like say nice things about us.
Yeah, we'll put a script for you on, we'll tweet a script for you and just repeat it back to us.
Yeah, I'll be posting that on Monday. So look out for that. Look out for the script. Maybe just hit a retweet button. And then we'll see you next week for Adventures of Lolo. I'm Michael Esposito. You can find me at Esposito Film on Twitter, and I'll talk to you soon.